My name is Brittany, and at 28, I'd managed to build what most would consider a pretty good life for myself. After years of hard work, I had landed a position at one of the most prestigious companies in the city. The salary was excellent, and I had finally achieved one of my biggest dreams, buying my own apartment. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was mine, paid for with my own money, and that made it perfect. I remember that day clearly. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon when my younger sister Ashley showed up at my door unannounced. At 23, she still lived with our parents, which had never seemed to bother her before. She'd always been content letting them support her while she figured out her life, as she put it. But this time, something was different. As soon as I let her in, I noticed her eyes darting around my apartment with an intensity I'd never seen before. She wandered from room to room, touching things, examining everything as if she was seeing it all for the first time, even though she'd been here countless times before. "Your place is so nice, Britt," she said, running her hand along my kitchen counter. "You're so lucky." I couldn't help but laugh. "Lucky? Ashley, I worked my ass off for this place. You know that." She turned to face me, and I was surprised to see tears welling up in her eyes. "I can't take it anymore," she burst out. "Living with mom and dad, it's suffocating me. They're suppressing all my aspirations for independence." I nearly choked on my coffee. This was rich coming from Ashley, who had never shown the slightest interest in being independent before. "Since when?" I asked, trying to keep the skepticism out of my voice. "Last time we talked, you were pretty happy having mom do your laundry and dad paying your phone bill." "That's exactly the problem." She pulled out her phone and started quoting something. "According to Dr. Martinez's book on adult child-parent relationships, this is classic codependency. If I don't break free from the parental umbilical cord now, I'll be stuck there forever, just withering away." I set my coffee down and looked at her hard. "Ashley, what exactly are you asking me?" She took a deep breath, and there it was, the real reason for her visit. "I need your help, Britt. I want to move out, but I need money for the first 3 months of rent. I'll find a job right away, and then I'll be completely self-sufficient. Just like you." Maybe it was the way she said, "just like you," that got me. Or maybe I was just tired of worrying about her never growing up. Whatever it was, I heard myself saying, "Okay, I'll help you." The squeal she let out probably could have been heard 3 floors down. She threw her arms around me, nearly knocking me over. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're the best sister ever, Britt. You won't regret this, I promise." A week after our conversation, Ashley burst into my apartment waving her phone in the air like she'd just won the lottery. "Britt, I found the perfect places. You have to see these." I was in the middle of making dinner, but she practically dragged me to my couch. As she started scrolling through the listings, my eyes nearly popped out of my head. The first apartment she showed me was in Riverside Towers, one of the most expensive complexes in the city. "Look at this view," she gushed. "And it has a rooftop pool, gym, and even a concierge." "Ashley," I said slowly, "this place is $2,800 a month. But it comes with parking." She swiped to the next listing. "Okay, this one's a bit cheaper, only $2,500. But look at the marble countertops." I put my hand over her phone. "Stop. These places are completely out of the question." I pulled up my laptop and showed her a listing I'd found earlier. "Here, this is more realistic. It's a 1-bedroom in a good neighborhood, comes furnished with basic appliances, and the rent is reasonable." Ashley wrinkled her nose as she looked at the photos. "But it's so basic." "It's clean, safe, and perfectly nice for a first apartment," I said firmly. "In fact, it's nicer than my first place was. Plus, it's within walking distance of several businesses where you could apply for jobs." She slumped back on my couch, clearly disappointed. "I guess." "Look," I said, trying to be patient, "this is exactly the kind of place you need while you're getting established. Once you have a steady job and your own income, you can upgrade if you want." After what felt like an hour of convincing, she finally agreed to look at my suggestion. The next day, we met with the realtor, a cheerful woman named Linda, who walked us through the apartment. It was exactly as advertised, modest but pleasant, with decent furniture and working appliances. Ashley kept making faces when she thought I wasn't looking, but I ignored her. "We'll take it," I told Linda, pulling out my checkbook. I wrote checks for both the security deposit and 3 months' rent, while Ashley signed the lease agreement. As she scribbled her signature, I felt a mix of pride and anxiety. This was really happening. Over the next few weeks, I called Ashley regularly to check on her job search. Her answers became increasingly evasive. During our last call, I finally lost my patience. "Ashley, I'm not going to pay your rent indefinitely. You need to find work." "Don't worry about it," she said dismissively, and before I could respond, she hung up on me. I stared at my phone in disbelief, a sinking feeling in my stomach that my sister's version of independence might be very different from mine. 3 months flew by faster than I expected. I was knee-deep in a project at work when my phone buzzed. Ashley's name flashed across the screen, and for a moment, I hoped she was calling with good news about a job. I couldn't have been more wrong. "Hey, Britt," she said, her voice casual as if she was about to comment on the weather. "Just reminding you that the rent's due by the 15th. You'll need to transfer money for the next 3 months." I nearly dropped my coffee. "Ashley," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we had an agreement. You were supposed to get a job and start paying your own rent. That was the whole point of this, becoming independent, remember?" "Oh, come on," she interrupted, not even letting me finish. "I haven't found the right position yet, but I'm totally on my way to it. These things take time, you know?" "No, I don't know," I snapped. "You've had 3 months to find something, anything. You wanted independence so badly, remember? Well, independent people pay their own bills." She hung up with such force I could practically feel it through the phone. I sat back in my chair, heart pounding but feeling proud that I'd finally stood my ground. That feeling lasted exactly 15 minutes. My phone rang again, this time it was Mom. My stomach dropped before I even answered. "Brittany Marie Thompson." Mom's voice came through like a tornado. "How dare you refuse to help your sister?" She called me crying. "Mom, I've already paid for 3 months of rent. The whole point was for her to become independent." "Independent?" She cut me off. "She's your sister. Family helps family, that's what we do. You have a good job, a good salary. You can afford to help her." "But Mom, do you want her to end up homeless? Is that what you want? To see your sister out on the street?" The guilt trip was coming on strong, and I felt my resolve weakening. Mom kept going, her voice a mix of disappointment and accusation that she'd perfected over the years. The worst part was, I knew exactly what was happening. I knew I was being manipulated. But knowing didn't make it any easier to resist. "Fine," I said finally, my voice tight. "I'll pay for 3 more months. But that's it. This is the last time." "That's my girl," Mom said, her voice immediately warming. "I knew you'd do the right thing." After hanging up, I transferred the money and sent Ashley a text, "Rent paid for 3 more months. This is absolutely the last time. I mean it." Her response came seconds later, a single emoji, a smiling face with a halo. The innocence of the emoji felt like a slap in the face, and I knew right then that I'd made another mistake. But what could I do? She was my sister, and Mom was right about one thing, I could afford it. A week after that, I was lying in bed scrolling through my phone when I decided to check Ashley's Instagram. I hadn't looked at it in a while, and what I saw made my blood pressure spike. There she was, posing in my apartment, the one I was paying for, like some kind of lifestyle influencer. Photo after photo showed her lounging on the furniture, standing by the window with the perfect morning light, and arranged artfully on the kitchen counter with a cup of coffee. The captions were even worse. "Living my best, authentic life. Being true to yourself is the greatest gift. Sometimes you have to choose your own path. Trust the journey. I scrolled through weeks of posts, my jaw clenching tighter with each swipe. Not a single mention of job hunting. Not one word about looking for work or becoming self-sufficient. Just endless selfies and pseudo-philosophical quotes about following your dreams. I couldn't take it anymore. I opened our messenger chat and typed, "When are you actually going to start looking for work?" The response came so fast, I wondered if she'd been waiting for me to ask. A photo appeared in our chat, an official-looking email with a company letterhead. It was an invitation to a job interview, complete with date, time, and location. My heart lifted. Finally. Maybe she was actually getting serious about. My phone rang. It was Ashley. "Did you see it?" she squealed before I could even say hello. "I got an interview. But Britt, I need your help with something really important." "Here we go." "What?" "Well, I need to look professional for the interview, right? First impressions are everything. I need some nice clothes and a trip to the salon, to really wow them. I was thinking maybe you could help me out? Like, $800 should cover everything." $800? I nearly choked. "Absolutely not. Please, Britt, this could be my big break." Her voice turned desperate. "I promise I'll pay you back as soon as I get the job." "You want me to get the job, don't you?" "Ashley. The receptionist is the first person who sees you, and they always report back to the hiring manager. I read about it online. I need to look perfect. Please, please, please." I rubbed my temples. "Ashley. Please, Britt, pretty please. I promise this is the last thing I'll ever ask for." 10 minutes of this. 10 solid minutes of begging, promising, and emotional manipulation. I knew what she was doing. I knew it, and yet. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth, pulling up my banking app. "But this is absolutely the last time." "You're the best sister ever," she squealed. "I love you so much." I transferred the money, hating myself a little as I did it. But maybe, just maybe, this would be the thing that finally got her on track. A few days later, I called Ashley during my lunch break. "Hey, how did the interview go?" I asked as soon as she picked up. There was a pause on the other end. "What interview?" My stomach dropped. "The interview you needed the $800 for? The one you showed me the invitation for?" "Oh, that." She gave a little laugh that made my skin crawl. "Yeah, about that. I went to check out the company, and honestly, Britt, it just wasn't for me. The position was super boring. Just data entry and filing, totally monotonous stuff. I'd die of boredom in a job like that. I need something more creative, The rage that had been building over months finally boiled over. "You're not in a position to be picky," I shouted into the phone. "You haven't worked a day in your life. And I'm not going to support you forever while you wait for your dream job to fall into your lap." "Oh," she cut me off quickly. "Sorry, Britt, I've got to go, waiting for a super important call. Talk later." The line went dead before I could say another word. I sat at my desk, shaking with anger, when something occurred to me. I pulled up Instagram and went to her profile. There, posted just hours ago, was my sister, not in any professional interview outfit, but in a sparkling party dress that probably cost every cent of the money I'd given her. The caption read, "Life is a party, dress like it." I tried calling her back immediately, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, no response. By the time I left work that evening, I'd worked myself into such a state that instead of heading home, I drove straight to her apartment. I could hear the bass thumping from halfway down the block. As I approached her building, the music got louder and louder. By the time I reached her floor, it was obvious she was having a full-blown party, on a Wednesday night, no less. I still had the spare key from when I'd helped her move in. My hand shook as I fitted it into the lock. The door opened silently, the music so loud it drowned out any sound I might have made. The scene that greeted me was like something out of a college movie. There had to be at least 20 people crammed into the small apartment. Drinks everywhere, music blaring, people dancing. And there, in the middle of it all, was my sister, wearing that expensive dress I'd paid for, dancing like she didn't have a care in the world. I was about to storm across the room and confront Ashley when suddenly the music cut off. In the momentary silence, I heard my sister's voice, loud and clear. "You guys want to know the best part?" Ashley was saying, her words slightly slurred. "My sister, my rich, successful sister Brittany, she pays for all of this." She gestured grandly around the apartment, nearly spilling her drink. My feet felt frozen to the floor as I listened. "She actually gave me $800 for interview clothes." Ashley made air quotes with her fingers. "Can you believe how stupid she is? I mean, look at this dress. Much better than some boring office suit, right?" More laughter. I recognized some of the faces in the crowd, people I'd met before, people who knew me. "And get this," Ashley continued, clearly enjoying her audience, "she actually thinks I'm going to get a job. Like, why would I need to work when I have a cash cow for a sister?" She took another sip of her drink. "All I have to do is cry a little about wanting to be independent, and she throws money at me." The group around her erupted in laughter and cheers. "You're so lucky," one girl called out. "My sister would never." "That's because your sister isn't a gullible idiot," Ashley replied with a smirk. "I swear, Brittany actually believes all that crap about me wanting to." Someone in the crowd finally noticed me standing there. The person's face went pale, and they grabbed their friend's arm, pointing in my direction. Like a wave, the realization spread through the room. The laughter died, replaced by uncomfortable coughs and whispers. Ashley, still grinning from her performance, followed their gazes. When she saw me, the smile vanished from her face so fast it was almost comical. The color drained from her cheeks, and her drink slipped from her hand, shattering on the floor. I walked to the center of the room, my heels clicking against the hardwood floor in the sudden silence. Every eye was on me as I stopped in the middle of what had become a makeshift dance floor. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady when I spoke. "So this is what you really think of me," I said, looking directly at my sister. "This is how you treat someone who's tried to help you. You lie to me, manipulate me, steal from me, and then laugh about it with your friends. You think I'm a fool?" The silence in the room was deafening. Some people were already quietly gathering their things, trying to slip out unnoticed. Then Ashley's shock wore off, and a calculated look crossed her face, one I'd seen before, but never properly recognized. "What are you going to do about it?" she asked, her voice taking on that familiar whining tone, but this time with an edge of triumph. "You'll keep supporting me anyway." "You know why?" "Because if you don't, I'll just tell Mom and Dad. And you know whose side they'll take, they always do. They'll make your life hell until you help your poor little sister again." I didn't say another word. I turned and walked out of the apartment, my head held high. As I reached the elevator, I heard the music start up again behind me, the bass thumping through the walls as if nothing had happened. The weeks that followed were quiet. My sister didn't call, and surprisingly, neither did my parents. The silence should have been peaceful, but instead, it felt like the calm before a storm. I knew it was only a matter of time before the other shoe dropped. 3 months of silence ended with a ping from my phone. A message from Ashley popped up on my screen, "Rent's due for the next quarter. Need money for food and clothes too. Send it ASAP." The audacity was breathtaking. After everything that had happened, she was still treating me like her personal ATM. I typed back a simple response, "No, I'm not paying anything else for you. Ever." My phone immediately started buzzing with incoming calls from Ashley. I watched it ring out again and again, feeling a strange sense of calm as I ignored each attempt. Then Mom's name flashed across my screen. "Brittany," she said as soon as I picked up, her voice stern. "We need to have a serious conversation. Come to the house tomorrow after work." The next evening, I pulled into my parents' driveway with a knot in my stomach. As soon as I walked through the door, I knew I'd walked into an ambush. Ashley was sitting on the couch, wearing no makeup, her hair pulled back messily, looking every bit the part of the suffering victim. Mom and Dad sat on either side of her like guards. I barely had time to close the door before Dad started in on me. "How could you do this to your sister?" he demanded. "She's about to be evicted because of you. Do you have any idea what you're putting her through?" Mom jumped in. "She's barely eating, she's so stressed." I looked at Ashley, who sniffled dramatically on cue. The Oscar-worthy performance made my blood boil. "Are you kidding me?" I shot back. "I paid her rent for 6 months. I gave her money for clothes, for food, and you know what she did with it? She threw parties. Bought party dresses. And then had the nerve to brag to her friends about what a fool I was for giving her money." "Oh, please," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "She was just joking around with her friends." "You're being too sensitive." "Joking?" I could hardly believe what I was hearing. "She literally called me a cash cow and bragged about manipulating me." "You're the older sister," Dad cut in, his voice hard. "It's your responsibility to help her. We raised you better than this." "My responsibility?" I repeated incredulously. My responsibility was to help her become independent, not bankroll her permanent vacation. Ashley sat there through it all, a small, satisfied smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She thought she had me cornered. She thought I would cave, just like every other time. I looked at my family, my mother's disapproving frown, my father's stern glare, my sister's smug expression, and something inside me snapped. "No," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "I'm done. I'm not giving her another cent. She's an adult. If she wants to live independently, she can pay her own bills like the rest of us." I was heading for the door. Behind me, I could hear Dad yelling about family responsibility, Mom crying about how she'd raised such a selfish daughter, and Ashley's theatrical sobs. I got in my car and drove home, my phone buzzing constantly with calls and messages. I turned it off without looking at any of them. For the first time in months, I felt truly free, free from the manipulation, free from the guilt, free from the endless demands. A few weeks after our showdown, my cousin Jackie called to check on me. She'd heard about the fight and wanted to give me some updates. "Your parents are paying Ashley's rent now," she told me. "They had to take money out of their retirement fund to cover it. She still hasn't even looked for a job." 2 months of relative peace followed. Then one evening, my phone lit up with Mom's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Brittany?" Her voice was trembling. We have a problem." The story came out in bits and pieces, punctuated by my mother's barely suppressed sobs. The apartment owner had finally had enough of the neighbors' complaints about Ashley's constant parties. He'd shown up unannounced during one of her latest bashes, with the police in tow. "But that's not the worst part," Mom's voice cracked. "When they did an inventory of the apartment, Brittany, Ashley had sold some of the furniture and appliances. The owner's furniture. She'd been selling things bit by bit to pay for her parties." I sank into my couch, stunned. "She what?" "She's being charged with theft," Mom was openly crying now. "But the owner said if we reimburse him for everything she sold, he won't press charges. Please, Brittany, we need your help. Your father and I don't have enough after covering her rent." "No," I said firmly. "I warned all of you what would happen if you kept enabling her. This is the result of how you raised her, making excuses for everything she does, never letting her face consequences. How can you be so heartless?" Mom's voice rose. "She made some mistakes, but she's family. Think about what this would do to her future. Think about what it would do to this family." "I am thinking about her future," I replied. "Maybe facing real consequences is exactly what she needs. Please, Brittany," she tried one last time, her voice thick with tears. "If you ever loved your sister." "Goodbye, Mom." I hung up. A week later, Jackie called again. "Thought you'd want to know," she said. "Your parents cashed out what was left of their retirement fund to pay off the apartment owner. They had to pay for all the missing furniture, plus a huge penalty, to break the lease early. Ashley's been kicked out, obviously." "Where is she now?" "Back in your parents' house. Still not working, still posting on Instagram about living her truth or whatever." Jackie paused. "Your parents are telling everyone you abandoned the family in their time of need." "That was 6 months ago. Ashley still lives with our parents, still doesn't work, and still posts inspirational quotes about weathering life's storms. Mom and Dad had to postpone their retirement, but they haven't learned their lesson. They're still supporting her, still making excuses. As for me, I haven't spoken to any of them since that last phone call. Sometimes I see posts from extended family members about holiday gatherings I'm not invited to anymore. I hear through Jackie about the stories they tell, painting me as the villainous older sister who abandoned her family. But here's the thing, sometimes being the bad guy means you're the only one brave enough to stop the madness. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their actions. And sometimes family isn't about enabling bad behavior, it's about having the courage to say no when everyone else is saying yes.
My parents never loved me. There was no reason. If anything, it was just because my younger sister was cuter. The only ones who ever loved me were my grandparents. My name is Samantha. I'm 45-year-old, born in the central city, but this spring I moved to the countryside. It goes without saying that I get excessively jittery every time I see large spiders or geckos. Reminiscent of my visits to my grandparents' rural home as a child. Seeing the bugs I'm not fond of reminds me of the old times. It's a very mixed feeling. But well, since those are warm memories, it's fine. My childhood was never happy. There might have been happy times, but I don't remember them. From a young age, my parents raised me differently than my sister, Erica, who is 2 years younger. That's why I love the yearly visits to my paternal grandparents in the countryside. I played house with my grandmother, crushing grass with stones. And my grandfather made woodcraft. I have plenty of memories. However, after my grandfather passed away when I was in kindergarten, my parents stopped going near the countryside. I later found out that my mother hated the countryside, calling it earthy and unpleasant. Since my father was under her thumb, I lost the only 2 people who played with me. My mother hated the countryside, but she disliked me just as much. I honestly don't remember much about my time in kindergarten. It is said that people tend to forget unpleasant memories under stress and rewrite them as good memories, especially children. What I clearly remember is being sent straight to the bath every time I returned from kindergarten because I was sweaty. My sister wasn't treated that way, so in retrospect, maybe it was just to instill in me that I was a smelly child. I fully realized the disparity between me and my sister when I entered elementary school. On the day of my entrance ceremony, my father didn't attend, saying, "Erica wants a toy." My mother complained endlessly, "Huh? But I want to go too." Thanks to that, I spent the entire ceremony looking at my sulking mother's face. Not to mention the typical scene at the school gate. Capturing a photo in a backpack didn't happen. At that time, I thought, is this how it's supposed to be? I was too young and didn't know any better. Because I didn't know other families to compare with. But 2 years later, at Erica's entrance ceremony, seeing our parents buy new clothes and a video camera made me realize the disparity between us. I wish I hadn't known, because not noticing might have spared me the feeling of loneliness. Erica took a photo in front of the school gate and our parents, all smiles. After Erica's entrance, I noticed other differences as well. Every time I had a parent visit day, my mother always arrived late. About 15 minutes before the end. Foolish me thought. Mom is taking care of Erica and is busy, but I'm happy she comes even if late. However, for Erica's class observation days, my mother would prepare the day before with a face pack. Moreover, she didn't show up at my parent visit on the same day. From that day on, my mother stopped coming to parent visit days. Eventually, my teacher said, "I understand you're busy, but please try to come on parent visit days." And she reluctantly came. But only 5 minutes before the end, and then she stopped coming again. There were no photos of me at sports festivals either. Erica was always captured in videos just standing in line. Whether I was dancing or doing anything, I was never preserved as a subject in any photos. My socks were worn until the fabric between the toes hurt. Even when holes opened at the big toes. You can still wear them, I was told. Meanwhile, Erica frequently had her clothes replaced. As I became aware of the disparity with my sister, a loneliness I had never felt before engulfed me. Do Mom and Dad hate me? So, in a moment of wanting some attention, when Erica was talking about getting new clothes, I tried to act spoiled and said, "Buy me some too." At the time, I was quite a well-behaved child. I thought their attitude was just how things are. And if I was good, maybe I would be treated like Erica. So, I thought surely they would grant my rare request. However, my mother, looking utterly annoyed, said dismissively, "Huh? Don't be selfish. If you keep talking like that, I'll put you in a facility," while snorting with laughter. My father also laughed and said, Hey, that's a harsh joke." "Well, Samantha, you're a good girl, right? Just endure it." At that time, I didn't know what a facility was. I looked up its meaning in a dictionary in the school library, but I still didn't understand. However, from that day on, my mother continued to threaten me with, "I'll put you in a facility," and even I came to know what it meant. I remember that night, tears wouldn't stop. My mother might have intended it as a joke, but for me as a child, it was as shocking as seeing the word despair come to mind. I still don't know why my parents disliked me so much. But I've heard that when siblings are close in age, parenting can be difficult, and gradually the younger child may seem cuter. Perhaps my family was a typical example of this. Regardless of my mother's true intentions, fearing that someday I might really be put in a facility, I became obedient to her. Then, one day when I was returning from elementary school with Erica, she stumbled on a stone and fell, injuring her knee on an awkwardly shaped drainage ditch. When I carried Erica home on my back, my mother was terribly upset and rushed her to the hospital. That night, I was yelled at by my mother, who was sobbing. "Why did Erica get hurt when you were with her?" Reflecting now, I was not at fault, and I had done everything I could for my sister. But at the time, as a 4th grader, all I could do was weakly apologize, "I'm sorry." When I inadvertently started to cry, my mother exploded. "We're the ones who want to cry. What if Erica is scarred for good?" My father, while trying to soothe my mother, said, "If it were Samantha who got hurt, I wouldn't have worried. I only walked home with my sister because Mom and Dad told me to, even though I wanted to go home with my friends." That thought swirled in my heart, and from that day, I gradually began to dislike my only sister. Strictly speaking, I didn't hate her. I wanted to get along and thought she was cute. She adored me, but I was just jealous of the affection she received from our parents. I even disliked myself for feeling this way. Why couldn't I love my sister? Why couldn't our family be normal? Consumed by these dark feelings, I lived each day to the fullest. Then, when Erica entered middle school, I was forced to quit the basketball team. It was a parental mandate to come home together. Erica, too, was forbidden from club activities by our overprotective parents. Because of the injury she suffered that day. I had hoped to be away from Erica in high school, but my sister, who hadn't studied for the entrance exams, was forced to choose a school she was guaranteed to pass into. It was for us to attend the same school. For some reason, our parents wanted me to keep an eye on her. Even though we wouldn't be together for the full 3 years. The fact that we had to go home together, just because we were in the same school, was bizarre. But, strange parenting wasn't new to us. I wanted to resist, but without the ability to earn money myself, I had no choice but to comply. Especially since they threatened not to pay my tuition otherwise. Later, despite Erica having the capability to aim for a higher level school, she enrolled in my high school as per our parents' projected future. At that time, I resented Erica so much that I barely spoke to her. And I don't know what she thought about her own educational path. I only remember that she always seemed timid around me. At school, we were ridiculed for always sticking together. And we both felt out of place in our class. Since almost all play with classmates was forbidden, we remained isolated. Erica's timid demeanor might have stemmed from that. I often wondered who could possibly be happy living like this. However, a turning point came in my senior year of high school. Our parents said, "We won't stop you from going to college, but only a junior college for you. Erica will go to a 4-year all-girls college." By then, they were afraid of Erica getting a boyfriend and going far away. They planned to keep her close to home, even if it meant higher tuition fees, to a women-only place. Thankfully, I was finally able to separate from Erica. And the 2 years I spent at junior college were truly enjoyable. The days of freely going home with friends and organizing study sessions are memories I will never forget. Then, in my second year of junior college, another happy event occurred. My grandmother, who had been living apart, injured her leg and came to live with us. My mother was very reluctant, but my father persuaded her. I was thrilled to live with my grandmother, which was a sentiment I felt for the first time toward my father. Perhaps because of my grandmother's presence. My parents didn't treat me as harshly as before. For the first time, I experienced days that were smooth sailing. One day, as my graduation from junior college was approaching, and I was preparing for the job induction ceremony, my mother said, "Why bother preparing a suit? You won't use it anyway." "Why?" "Because I contacted them and declined your job offer. With what you'd earn, you couldn't enrich our finances, right? So, just be unemployed and drive Erica to school every day." I sighed involuntarily. Sister, sister, sister. That's all that seemed to occupy their minds. Even my father chimed in, saying, "Be happy I'm saying it's okay for you to be unemployed." "Well, I'm not going to take care of you financially." I stared down at my parents, embarrassed by them. It was at that moment. "You were completely fooled, you foolish sons." My grandmother laughed uproariously, clapping her hands behind my parents. "Ha," my parents said, looking dumbfounded. Seeing my grandmother looking so amused, I couldn't help but laugh along with her. "Resign from the job offer? The company you thought you called about? Samantha's job is actually a friend's company where I run my own business." "What?" As my grandmother revealed this, my parents' eyes widened in shock. What do you mean by that? Mother, why are you walking normally, eh? I thought your leg was. That was a lie too. My grandmother, who was supposed to have bad legs, walked briskly past my parents with a smug look. I knew that even if I secured a job, my mother would have declined it on my behalf. I had overheard my parents whispering about it before the job hunting season even started. If we make Samantha drive her sister every day, no weird guys will approach her from a university with a possibility of marriage. We must completely keep men away from her. Seriously, they discussed such absurd things. I had hoped to leave my parents' home upon getting a job since I couldn't do so during college. Hearing their conversation, I was devastated. Was I destined to live a life tethered to my parents? During that time, a college friend who noticed my pale face expressed concern. Having never really had friends, being worried about by a friend was a new experience for me. Thanks to this friend, I was able to confide in them about my life and what had happened. It was my friend who suggested I rely on my grandmother, making me realize that was an option. Perhaps because of my upbringing, I had no sense of relying on others. I thought I had to handle everything on my own. From there, I got my grandmother's phone number and secretly contacted her from my friend's house so my parents wouldn't find out. I was silent, holding the receiver, not knowing what to talk about after such a long time. Then my grandmother said, "Is that you, Samantha? How did you know? Don't underestimate me." I wouldn't forget my precious granddaughter. I could hear my grandmother's laughter, warm and familiar. I cried as I told her everything. It was me who made up the story about my leg being bad to get that dimwit to take me in. My grandmother had skillfully used my father to make arrangements to live with us. She could have taken me in immediately. But since the university was known to my parents, I couldn't escape. So, she made arrangements for me to safely get a job out of state without my parents knowing. After my grandmother finished explaining everything to my parents, it was then. "I can't stand this house anymore either," Erica appeared behind my grandmother, tears streaming down her face. "What?" my parents exclaimed in surprise. "You hate it, why?" "We've been good to you, Erica." "That's right, Erica." At their words, Erica was silent for a moment, looking down, then glared at our parents with eyes red from crying. "Good to me? Do you really think that? Since I was little, you've told me, Erica, your sister hates you, so leave her alone. Trust us. You lied and tore our sisterhood apart. I couldn't even choose the career I liked. Not just me, but my sister couldn't make friends either. Even though she was the only one who understood me, you did things to keep us apart." The first thing my grandmother did when she came to our house was listen to my sister's story. Honestly, at that time, I wondered why my beloved grandmother would listen to her, thinking I didn't care about such a person. But as my sister said, from a young age, our parents had instilled in her that her sister hated her. They said they were making a difference because I was a terrible sister, that it was for education. As she grew up, she realized how messed up our home was, but by then, she truly believed she was hated by me. That's why she was always so timid. She didn't know how much of what our parents said was true, and gradually became afraid to even speak with me. Like me, she hadn't realized that relying on others was an option, had no friends, and was dealing with her problems alone. The sister I had always envied and been jealous of was also a victim of our parents. That didn't mean I immediately felt she was my precious sister. No matter what. I couldn't get rid of my jealousy. Maybe my grandmother understood that. She let us skip school and rented a room in a business hotel to give us time to talk away from our parents' eyes. We cried and vented our feelings to each other. My grandmother silently watched over us, exhausted from letting out our emotions. I fell asleep and woke up holding my sister's head to my chest. I had been jealous and resentful, but the truth is, I also felt she was just as precious. That was the moment I realized it. I couldn't immediately think of her as my beloved sister. But I was sure we could change. Thus, we decided to start over as sisters from that day. Well, since my job offer was still pending and we couldn't immediately act sisterly. Because of our unpredictable parents, we couldn't leave the house safely yet. Why not? What will happen to us if Erica hates us? Samantha resents me. Erica has to take care of us in our old age. I can't trust Samantha with that. So it seems. My parents were abnormally opposed to Erica having a boyfriend, because they were planning for her to take care of them in the future. I thought they were just trying to dump everything unpleasant on me. But it seems they simply felt their lives would be in danger with me. Well, I'm confident enough that they should naturally worry about such things, given how badly they've treated me. I might not know what I'd do if I saw my weakened parents in front of me. So I couldn't help but retort, even if you ask, I won't do it. Are you crazy? Really, you're not a cute child, my mother glared at me. Yeah, maybe you're just like me, I said with a snort. And my mother made an ugly face as she clicked her tongue. It's no use saying you don't want to, Erica. You've already been accepted to a nearby university, right? Let's get along. My mother grabbed Erica's shoulder and began to persuade her with her own convenient reasoning. Ah, that too, I've told the school about the situation and submitted a withdrawal notice. Erica will be pursuing a career as a wedding planner at a vocational school out of state starting in the fall. What? How come? As my grandmother smiled and spoke, my parents' mouths hung open in astonishment. What foolish faces they made. My parents, who had seemed terrifyingly invincible in my childhood, looked pathetically weak in front of my grandmother's nimble wit and robust demeanor. Maybe you fools don't understand, but you shouldn't take away a child's dreams. Didn't you know that Erica has always wanted to work in weddings? Trying to send her to some random liberal arts college, really? At my grandmother's words, my father raised his voice. Children's dreams don't come true, so it doesn't matter. That was the moment. Then, my grandmother slapped my father's cheek and said, "While I'm at it," and delivered a slap to my mother as well. Holding their cheeks, my parents stared at my grandmother like little children. The pain and suffering these two have endured isn't enough with just this. But if you keep talking nonsense, I'll kick you too? Saying that, my grandmother mimed a kick. I was happy that these children had dreams despite such worthless parents. They grew up decently without rotting. I have a responsibility too, for not realizing this situation for a long time. Let me at least help make their dreams come true. See? She said, looking at us sisters and smiling. Hey, we are the parents here. How dare you just decide such things? Parents? Just because you're parents, you think you can do whatever you want? If that's the case, am I free to pour boiling water on that foolish son of yours and just leave him be? My grandmother said with a grin, and from the look in her eyes, it seemed she might seriously do it, causing my father to tremble. Anyway, I'll be the one looking after these children. What? Don't just say whatever you want, Mom. You don't even have the money. Before your father died, he said every time Samantha comes to our house, it seems like her parents don't care much about her. What? Back then, Erica was little and needed a lot of attention. So I thought that foolish wife of yours was just too busy taking care of her. Your father was worried that Samantha was being unfairly treated. That's why, even after your father passed away, I kept calling you kids because I was worried, but you just dismissed it as meddling. I couldn't do anything because I didn't understand the reality of your parenting. If there was nothing wrong, indeed, my actions were meddling. So, yes, I also bear some responsibility for these children's unhappiness. According to your father's will, he set aside some of his retirement funds and inheritance for these children. We'll use that to live out of state. With a firm gaze, my grandmother declared this, and my parents slumped, deflated. Do we just need to apologize? Then will you leave Erica with us? My mother said this as she stared intently at my grandmother. My father added, if that's the case, I'll apologize. Ah. That's just it. Why don't you understand? Do you really think that such an emotionless apology can remove the pain these children have carried throughout their lives? My grandmother raised her voice and expressed her emotions, her clenched fists trembling. Listen. Never come near these children again. From now on, I will take responsibility and support them. You two are nothing but poison to them. Sever all parental ties from now on. What, sever ties? You're just a grandmother, you have no right to say such things. My mother became furious at my grandmother's words. Then, is it okay if it comes from your daughter? Erica and I both want to sever ties with you. Standing before my selfish parents, I had been at a loss for words. But finally, I could speak my true feelings. Erica feels that way too. To that extent. To that extent, huh? It's easy for you to say. You were never decent parents to either Erica or me. That's why severing ties is the only option left. Why can't you understand that? Shut up. That's just it. You're parents who can't be reasoned with. I knew that, but it's really hopeless. Anyway, we're leaving this house with grandmother. Why, you'll let us know your address, won't you, Erica? Even now, my mother clung to the hope that Erica will surely. Which made me nauseous. My father finally realized there was no more hope. Watching my mother's foolish antics with a pale face. I absolutely refuse. I've always done what you wanted, but no more. Mom and Dad, please forget about me. I never had parents who loved me. You are strangers to me. Erica was a bit shaky, perhaps due to the long-lasting effects of being compliant. She was likely scared. However, looking into our parents' eyes and speaking her mind was impressively courageous, even for my sister. So, today is the last day we're in this house. We already have a new place to live. I'll come back for our things later, but I won't let you near the children, so be prepared. With that declaration, my grandmother took our hands and briskly led us out of the house. From then on, the three of us started living together out of state. There was a vocational school nearby my company that Erica wanted to attend, and my grandmother found us a convenient place to live. At first, being told we could freely interact with each other was honestly a bit awkward. But my grandmother skillfully mediated. It took about half a year, but I think we finally started to have a sisterly relationship. By the time Erica graduated from vocational school, we were going shopping together. and my grandmother and I were her practice partners for job interviews. We had become a good family. The night we celebrated Erica becoming a wedding planner is still a fun memory for us. Recently, my grandmother started asking us more frequently, "Hey, do you girls have someone special in your lives?" with a sly grin. As sisters who were inexperienced with romance, we would blush and exclaim, "Nope." But her questions reminded us, right, we're free to fall in love now. Having been without even friends for so long, romance had felt like something distant. It took a while for both my sister and me to trust others enough to have a boyfriend. By our early 30s, I was 31 and Erica was 29. We each started dating someone we met at work. After a long relationship, we both got married. My husband is a bit older and kindly accepted my family's unusual circumstances. Not with a sense of strangeness, but with empathy. Because of his understanding, I felt I could walk through life with him. Erica's husband had a similar family background, having been disliked by his parents and raised by his grandparents, who were very kind. He understood Erica's pain because he shared similar experiences. Our traumas were significantly healed by the presence of our grandmother and our husbands. It showed me that wounds inflicted by people can also be healed through new relationships. About our parents, I heard from my grandmother a few years ago that our mother had passed away and our father had become estranged from her after we left the house. Whether out of irritation or loneliness, he developed liver disease due to alcoholism. However, neither Erica nor I attended our mother's funeral or visited our father. It may seem harsh, but we were unsure how they would treat us if we reconnected. Afraid of their potentially twisted attachment, we chose not to see them again. This fear is something only those with toxic parents might understand. I have no regrets. Currently, I am raising two sons, one in middle school and the other in high school. They often argue over silly things like, "Don't read the cartoon magazine I bought before me." Watching them, I think, such foolish sons. But I also find it endearing. We sisters never had such times during our school days. That's why I hope my sons will always be close as brothers. Well, right now one is drawing on the face of his sleeping brother. Yeah, really, stay close. Erica is raising a little girl in elementary school. She's quiet and doll-like, much like Erica was as a child. However, last year, after letting my sons take care of her for a bit, she picked up some strange phrases which was a bit embarrassing to my sister. 2 years ago, our grandmother passed away. After Erica's wedding, she lived with me and cherished us sisters until the end. At the wedding, she cried and told us to be happy. Her last words to us were also about being happy. "Absolutely be happy," she said. "Yeah, Grandma. Thanks to you, I think I'm the happiest person in the world. I can say that proudly." This spring, my husband's job transfer took us to the countryside, where our grandparents lived. My city-raised kids were shocked at first by the rural lifestyle. But they've come to enjoy fishing at the riverbank, and now they say the countryside is the best every weekend. They've also learned to catch crayfish from their classmates and are now proclaiming, "I'll become a professional crayfish or turtle fisher in the future." Son, I don't think that's a career. Probably. Although my grandmother is no longer with us. When I feel the countryside air, it's as if she's right beside me. Knowing her, she's probably still watching over us from nearby. Watch over us, Grandma, as Erica and I continue to find even greater happiness. Someday when we join you, let's have another girls' night out together. May the future and the day we join Grandma in the same place, greet us with smiles. Today, as always, I live each day cherishing the kind thoughts my grandmother left in my heart. The remittance is too little. Are you mocking us? Suddenly, I was yelled at by my parents over a furious phone call. I was confused by my father's words. According to him, my sister was remitting $4,000 every month, while I was apparently mocking them by sending only 50 cents. That can't be true. I send $4,000 every month, I asserted. Huh? What are you talking about? It's your sister who sends $4,000. She's a model and earns a lot of money. Don't lie. Your sister is so capable, and you. My father grumbled. Then my mother, who took the phone from him, scolded me with an exasperated sigh. Just because you moved out, you're probably wasting money, right? Your sister is working hard and trying to make things easier for us. But you only think about yourself. You should learn from your sister who sends $4,000 every month. From a young age, my parents doted on my sister. I couldn't understand the true intention behind their words, and felt speechless with sadness. Why was it believed that I only sent 50 cents? While puzzled, I decided to stop all remittances as my parents had stated. My name is Rose. I am a 28-year-old employee at a food processing company. I have a sister, Alyssa, 5 years my junior. From childhood, Alyssa had well-defined features and looked like a doll. Her appearance was angelic, and passers-by would turn their heads to look at her. Adults would often praise her, saying how cute she was. Compared to her, I was quite plain, so the adults would chuckle and say, "Rose is just so ordinary." Moreover, my parents adored the cute Alyssa, hoping to make her a model or celebrity in the future. The difference in how my parents treated Alyssa and me has been clear since I was conscious. As a child, I wore hand-me-downs that were worn out, while Alyssa always received new clothes. Alyssa was allowed to take any lessons she wanted, while I couldn't even attend cram school. Alyssa, raised as the darling of the family, became increasingly selfish. Rose's things are my things. My things are also my things, she would say, and took all the stationery I liked. Whenever I said something, my parents invariably dismissed me, saying, "Rose, you're the older sister, so be patient." I was fed up with Alyssa's cunning ways, and our parents never scolded her. I was hurt by our parents' blatant attitudes, but resigned myself to it. As I approached upper elementary school, Alyssa started demanding her own room. Knowing she wouldn't listen if she threw a tantrum, my parents said, "From today, Rose, you sleep in the living room. Rose, you don't need a room because you have few clothes." I reluctantly spread my mattress in the living room to sleep. My grandparents in the portraits had passed away soon after Alyssa was born, but they had adored me when I was little. My grandfather, who named me, loved Rose. And since I was born in the spring when the roses were in full bloom, he named me Rose. As a child, I remember feeling warm and comfortable on my grandfather's lap. "Rose, even if things are hard, they will eventually end. And happiness will bloom again like Rose," he used to say. I vaguely remembered such things. Even so, my parents' attitudes never changed, and I continued to live feeling out of place. My dream was to become a school nurse, and I told my parents I wanted to go to university, but they opposed it, saying, "We don't have the money, so work after high school graduation. You don't need education, and we still need a lot of money to take care of Alyssa. So you should cooperate for your sister. It was clearly not a situation where I could pursue further education. However, our family was not poor, just a very ordinary middle-class household. My parents were stingy with money for me because of Alyssa, so eventually, I attended a commercial high school, and Alyssa attended a prestigious women's university. After graduating from high school, I got a job at a small company and decided to move out. Ideally, I would have liked to live at home until marriage to save money. But I could see that staying at home would only continue the oppression. I rented a cheap studio apartment near my company. Living alone was more comfortable since my family home had not been a welcoming space. After graduating from university, Alyssa, who had received all my parents' hopes, lived at home and signed with a talent agency to work as a model. Apparently, she was scouted by her current agency while shopping with friends. My parents were overjoyed at Alyssa's entry into the entertainment industry and boasted about it to everyone they knew. One day, unusually, Alyssa contacted me, proposing to repay our parents for raising us. Now that both of us have grown up, we should make things easier for Dad and Mom. Let's be filial together from now on. Alyssa spoke cheerfully in a very good mood. I thought, Alyssa, who used to only think about herself, has grown up. So, I was thinking about what Dad and Mom need, and I guess money would be best. How about sending about $4,000 a month? $4,000? I was surprised at the higher amount than I expected. I thought, modeling work must be doing well. If both of us send money, I'm sure Dad and Mom will be really happy. Let's start sending money from this month. I felt a slight discomfort in her words, but our parents had debts from raising us. As they wanted to repay those debts quickly, I agreed. However, I didn't have much spare money either. I first dipped into my savings to send the $4,000. My monthly salary was $3,000. Even if I kept my living expenses to $1,000, I was still short $2,000. So, on my days off, I started working as a security guard at a construction site. The daily pay was decent, but standing outside all day was hard labor. Working outdoors was hot in the summer and cold in the winter. There were many hardships. Nevertheless, the construction workers, surprisingly kind, would buy me juice or snacks, saying, "You're a hard worker even though you're young." I also tried to reduce food expenses by cooking as much as possible and saving every penny. But it still wasn't enough. Is there any way to increase my income? That's it. I'll get a certification. I decided, and spent the free time at home, cutting back on sleep to study for certification. Work and study, my days passed hectically. Amid this busyness, I couldn't respond immediately to the numerous calls from my parents. "I'm sorry, I've been too busy with work to answer the phone." "What's wrong?" The first thing I heard when I finally got through was, "You really are heartless. Don't you have any gratitude for the parents who raised you?" My father yelled irritably over the phone, with my mother's agreeing voice in the background, "Yeah, that's right." I had no idea what they were talking about. "The remittance is too little." "Are you mocking us?" "What? Too little?" I was even more bewildered by my father's words. "Alyssa sends $4,000 every month, and you only send 50 cents? My father's voice grew louder. Startled, I responded quickly, "That's not true. I send $4,000 every month properly." "What are you talking about?" "It's Alyssa who sends $4,000. Alyssa is a model, so she earns a lot of money." Don't lie. While your sister is doing well, you. My father muttered complaints. Then, taking over the phone from him, my mother scolded me. Rose, just because you moved out doesn't mean you should be wasting money, right? Alyssa is working hard to make things easier for us, and you only think about yourself. Learn from your sister who sends $4,000 every month. She reprimanded me with a deep sigh of exasperation. I thought, why? I didn't understand the true meaning behind my parents' words, and felt so sad that I was at a loss for words. Previously, Alyssa had suggested, since it's weird that the remittance comes under the daughter's name, let's unify the sender's name to Nicole. I later learned that Nicole was Alyssa's stage name. Unbeknownst to me, she was using my name, Rose, for the 50 cents remittances. My parents believed that Alyssa was sending them $4,000. Trusting only her statements, and they said to me, don't bother sending money if it's just a small change like 50 cents. And abruptly hung up the phone. My parents, who wouldn't listen to me, and Alyssa, who deceived me, left me feeling a mix of sadness and frustration. I spent the whole night restless, unable to sleep, disturbed by the unfairness. I decided to discuss whether to continue sending money with my friend Hillary, who works at a consulting firm and is a successful career woman. Known for her strong sense of justice and no-nonsense advice, Hillary has always been a reliable confidant. Fortunately, since her office was nearby, she took time out of her busy schedule to have lunch with me. It's rare for you to ask for advice. What's up? She looked at me with concern. Actually, I'm having trouble with my parents and sister. I hesitated a bit before starting to explain the situation over the phone. Hillary listened silently, nodding throughout, and then asked me about the reason for the remittances. Your parents are still in their 50s, right? They're young, do they really need so much money? She was also surprised at the monthly amount of $4,000. I was told by my sister that my parents have debts from our education expenses, and that we decided to make our parents' life easier and repay them by both of us sending money. Hillary looked skeptical and reassured me. But the university costs were mostly for Alyssa, right? If your father is an office employee, he should have a stable income. So you don't need to overexert yourself, Rose. It's strange that they suddenly need $4,000 every month, when they've been living normally up till now. And if they insist that you are sending only 50 cents, then stop remitting like they say. It won't cause any problems. Encouraged by Hillary's advice, I nodded in agreement. Rose, you're too good a person. Don't let your family take advantage of your kindness. Her words struck a chord. I thought, I wonder what kind of person I've been to my family. From now on, I need to stand by my own decisions. I made a promise to myself. 2 months after I stopped the remittances, my phone rang persistently. And it was Alyssa calling to demand remittances. Oh, Rebecca, I've been calling all morning. Answer your phone. And that's terrible of you. We promised to ease our parents' burdens, so why did you stop sending money? Alyssa ranted furiously. It's tough over here too. The electricity and water bills are overdue, and we don't know when they'll be cut off. She claimed that life had become difficult for our parents since the remittances stopped. However, I knew that the remittances were being used for Alyssa's vanity and our parents' wasteful spending. Fortunately, Hillary, who has many connections due to her job, casually inquired with a friend who knew Alyssa's friends and found out the truth. When I heard your story, I thought it was strange. It seems Alyssa has been living luxuriously. She was even seen buying loads of cosmetics at the department store downtown. Hearing this from Hillary filled me with indignation. Especially since I couldn't even afford to buy new clothes and was saving every penny. According to Alyssa's friend, she said, "My big sister is my wallet, so she needs to work hard and send me money. Lately, there's been no remittance from her, and it's really bad. If this continues, I won't be able to afford spa treatments or high-end cosmetics." It was also revealed that my mother was buying loads of designer goods. And my father was hardly working, instead spending time at casinos. It was absurd to sacrifice my well-being to support my family's irresponsible lifestyle. I know everything. I won't send any more money for such reasons. Dad is still working, so don't contact me ever again. I firmly refused. A week later, I heard from Alyssa. This time it was my parents calling. When they questioned Alyssa about the missing $4,000 remittances, she finally admitted that it was actually me who had been sending the money. "I have no money, so don't rely on me," she revealed reluctantly. Alyssa had been telling our parents that she was earning well as a model. But in reality, she wasn't earning much and had become a burden to the talent agency. The only jobs she got were occasional gigs as a catalog model for a cheap mail order site, and even those paid little. Her lack of singing or dancing talent and charm meant she had no real skills to succeed in the entertainment industry. When this was revealed, my sister was scolded severely by our parents. "We've scolded Alyssa harshly. You just keep sending us money like you used to." Of course, there was no apology for calling me a liar. "As expected, you are reliable. Prepare and send the money for last month and this month as soon as you can." My parents, now demanding past remittances, showed their true greedy nature. "Alyssa mentioned before that we have debts for our education expenses, right?" Out of sudden curiosity, I asked. "There's no debt. Your education was paid for with the money left by your grandparents," my father answered bluntly. It turned out that Alyssa's claim about having debts and needing remittances was a lie. "Well, we need a bit of money for shopping," my mother responded insincerely. Knowing that my parents could live comfortably without remittances, I was certain there was no need to send them money. If Alyssa works properly, Dad's salary should be enough, I concluded. In response to my firm attitude, my father turned away in a huff, saying, "You can be so cold to the parents who raised you. You're no daughter of mine anymore. Really, you're not family." My mother looked incredulous as my parents expressed their dissatisfaction. They continued, "If that's the case, we'll cancel the savings account set up with the money your grandparents gave for your wedding expenses. You're a stranger to us now. Fine. Use that money however you want, Dad and Mom. But in return, leave me out of your lives." I decided I was done being manipulated by my parents and Alyssa. Alone, tears started to flow. I thought, how much has my family used me to their convenience? 2 months later, the intercom buzzed insistently. To my astonishment, it was my parents and Alyssa coming to my place. Filled with a desire to have nothing to do with them, I still went outside to hear them out. I was shocked to see the disheveled state of my parents and Alyssa. And they were equally surprised to see me. "You seem different." Alyssa and my parents, puzzled by my improved appearance and finer attire, asked me why. Since our last encounter, I had diligently continued my studies and earned a small business consultant certification. With Hillary's introduction, I had changed jobs, which, along with the certification, had increased my income. I'm now a team leader at my new job. It's very busy every day, and since my home is far from work, I decided to move to a newly built apartment. I stated this matter-of-factly. Then, one after another, they made selfish remarks. If you can afford it, help us out. We're family, we should help each other when in trouble. Give us some money. Knowing I had money, my parents and Alyssa clamored for it. As I listened, Alyssa mentioned that modeling had become difficult. The modeling industry is tough. It's also ephemeral, she said, almost crying. The glamorous aura she once had was gone. Struggling in her work, Alyssa had been approached by another talent agency promising she could become an actress. She decided to take the chance with my parents' help, borrowing money to transfer to the new agency. A high membership fee was required, and my father had even paid his early retirement severance pay. But it turned out to be a scam. Once they paid, the agency's manager disappeared, and all contact was lost. I was appalled at their carelessness for signing a contract without proper documentation. You shouldn't be here. You should go to the police right away, I urged as a loan shark appeared. Are you related to them? It seemed we had been followed. I learned that my parents and sister had borrowed a large sum from loan sharks, believing acting would bring in a fortune. Furthermore, Alyssa was venting her frustrations about her unsuccessful entertainment career at nightclubs. Her money was gone. My parents also gambled on casinos, hoping for a quick fortune, and ended up penniless. I felt no sympathy for their impulsive actions. When asked by the loan shark about our relationship, I stated firmly, "They are strangers. I have absolutely no connection with these people," and walked away. Later, my parents filed for bankruptcy to handle their debts. They had to sell their house and moved into a dilapidated apartment building over 60 years old. Both registered with a temporary staffing agency to scrape together a living. My father's next job was as a security guard at the construction site where I used to work. I hope we can get along from today. Oh my, a middle-aged man, huh? Nice to meet you. We used to have a young girl working hard here because she needed to send money home. Nowadays, parents making their daughters work security to send money home. Some parents are just monstrous. My father's face contorted. And Alyssa, having given up on modeling, dove into the nightlife world but was quickly fired from clubs and lounges due to her selfish nature, eventually eking out a living at a rundown snack bar. Her drinking increased, and her appearance drastically changed. Customers at the snack bar joked that her being a model was an urban legend. A model? Dream on. You look more like you belong in a wrestling ring than on a runway. I have cut ties with my parents and sister and am living freely. 5 years later, I attended Hillary's wedding. The ceremony was held at a chapel overlooking the sea in Hawaii. Blue sea, blue sky, an atmosphere of freedom. Next to Hillary was her husband, a man of good build and gentle demeanor, with a new life growing inside her. Hillary, who seemed focused solely on her career, had apparently fallen in love with a colleague and gotten married. I'm the type who gets what I want, but I cut off what I don't need. So, Rose, be true to yourself. Hillary laughed cheerfully, and her husband next to her chuckled softly. Don't abandon me. Hillary, thank you for everything. I wish you happiness always. I returned the sentiment with the brightest smile. Celebrating at Hillary's wedding, which had set me free, I expressed my gratitude once again. As the emotional ceremony neared its end, a man breathlessly arrived late. He seemed to be a friend of the bride and groom. Later, Hillary introduced me to this man named Samuel, nicknamed Sam by everyone. He was tall, healthy-looking, with a refreshing smile, and ran his own architectural firm. "I really wanted you to meet him," Hillary said with a mischievous grin. Caught up, Sam and I laughed together and found common ground, planning to go out for drinks together. It felt like roses were about to bloom. I had decided to pursue both love and my career, to walk my own path in life. "Grandpa, are you watching over me from heaven? I will make my own flowers bloom." My name is Jenny Hansen. I thought my newlywed life with my husband Ben was going well, as we had never even had a fight. I managed to get along with my mother-in-law, who lived with us, so I assumed everything would continue smoothly. However, I never could have imagined that this life would suddenly fall apart. It all began with my mother-in-law's words. "Ben is going to remarry, so you need to leave." Looking me straight in the eye. My mother-in-law's intent not to allow any opposition was clear. But I hadn't heard anything from Ben himself. It wasn't his words. With this thought, I looked at Ben, but he was either listening or not, as he was engrossed in his game. "Honey." I called out to my husband, seeking salvation. "It's what Ben is saying. There's no need to listen." But this is a matter between husband and wife. No matter my mother-in-law, she shouldn't interfere. Yet she continued as if it were the most natural thing. "She's the daughter of a real estate magnate." "The daughter of a real estate magnate?" "Yes. You're just a poor girl. A bottom feeder from a poor family. Get out of here right now." "What does that mean?" "Since when?" "That person is Ben's ex-girlfriend. They used to date, broke up, but now they're back together. It's always better to stick with the first girl you dated, isn't it?" "So, my mother-in-law wants Ben to remarry his ex-girlfriend. Is that true?" Unable to hold back any longer, I sought words from my husband. Then, irritably, he said, "Just do as I say." "Who is the other person?" "It's Nicole." "Nicole, my best friend?" "Yeah, that's right. I'm playing a game, so don't bother me." "A game, even during such an important conversation?" "It's not a big deal. Just get out since that's what you're being told to do." "Being told to leave, I can't just accept that. You need to explain how it came to this. When did it start?" "It was at the wedding." "Ah, I lost." "It's your fault." "The wedding." When reminded, I recall Nicole who attended our wedding. I tried my best because it's my best friend's wedding. Nicole had dressed up more than usual, buying new dresses and shoes so as not to embarrass me, spending extra time on her makeup, and getting her hair done at a salon. She was stunningly beautiful. "You're more beautiful than the bride." I had happily appreciated Nicole's thoughtfulness. Afterward, Nicole began visiting our newlywed home, seemingly happy for my happiness. I had heard that women's friendships end when they marry. But Nicole was different, visiting me more than ever. And Ben would always come home early when Nicole was visiting, taking care of her. What a kind husband. What a wonderful best friend. I genuinely thought so. Occasionally, Nicole would say, "It's bad always to eat your food, so today I'll cook for you." And she would bring her homemade dishes, which both Ben and my mother-in-law praised as delicious, better than mine. Indeed, Nicole, having lived alone for a long time, was good at cooking. Both she and Ben would laugh, saying it's strange she couldn't get married. even though it's disrespectful to say such things even to a best friend. I could only silently smile. I sometimes felt doubt during these enjoyable times. It was in Nicole's gaze and Ben's gaze, their eyes intertwining. I thought, so that's what this was. I was painfully made aware. Nicole was in tears, repeatedly saying, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. He's my best friend's husband, sorry, Jenny." My mother-in-law, comforting Nicole on the shoulder. It's natural for the daughter of a real estate magnate to win. There's no need for you to cry. Why was Nicole the daughter of a real estate magnate? I had never heard such a thing. But both my mother-in-law and husband believed it unquestioningly and supported Nicole. I couldn't understand what was happening. Why is Nicole the daughter of a real estate magnate? I've never heard of it. Don't be jealous. Just because you're a poor girl, being jealous of someone's background is pointless. I'm not jealous, but wiping Nicole's tears and hugging her, saying it's okay. My mother-in-law made me feel utterly thoughtless. Whether or not Nicole was such a wealthy daughter, I couldn't believe it. Nor could I understand why this was happening. All I could say was that I was no longer needed in this house. That's why you need to leave. You're just in the way if you stay in this house. In the way. Yes, Nicole is kind, and she was very troubled. But you know, both Ben and I prefer Nicole over a poor girl like you. So, you being here is just an eyesore. If you really want to live in this mansion, I could keep you as a maid. Is that so? After being told so much, I didn't want to stay. I forced a smile and spoke my last words. Well, you can look forward to my bottom feeder life then. That's right. I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of bottom feeder life you'll lead. My mother-in-law said that, but I curtsied and left the house. I heard a voice behind me saying, "Submit the divorce papers before you go," but I never looked back. Back at my parents' house, I locked myself in my room. My parents were perplexed by their daughter's sudden return. But anything they said would make me burst into tears, causing them only worry. I just cried in bed, not understanding why this had happened, and continued to suffer. I thought, why? How could this happen? The same questions looped in my mind, feeling like I was caught in a whirlpool with no way out. I thought, why would Nicole be the daughter of a real estate magnate? We've been friends for so long, and she never once acted like it. I was so troubled that a week passed before I could finally get out of bed. When I checked my smartphone, there were several apology messages from Nicole, all saying the same things: "I'm sorry. It's my fault. But I love him. So please break up." Ben had also sent countless emails saying, "Agree on the divorce quickly." The number of calls was frightening. Seeing this, I thought I couldn't continue like this. I thought, for Nicole's sake, for Ben's sake, and for my sake, I need to settle this. No one can be happy this way. I didn't feel hatred towards them. If my being selfish would make no one happy, then I had to cut off my feelings. So, I decided to call Ben. "Hello." His voice came through after just one ring, sounding displeased. "Finally, I got through to you. Do you know how many times I've called? Why are you ignoring me?" "Don't ignore me." I had never heard such words from Ben before, and I wanted to run away. But running away now would make this call meaningless. "I'm sorry. I've been sick and couldn't get out of bed. You could have at least replied to my emails." I couldn't do that either. I didn't feel like doing anything. "You're so weak. Despite being a poor man's daughter, why are you so mentally weak? Nicole endures whatever happens, you know. You're really no good. Ben listed reasons to denigrate me, and all I could do was keep apologizing. Why did I, the one cheated on, have to apologize? I didn't understand, but all I could say was sorry. However, as I listened to his words, my throat dried up. My breathing quickened, and my fingers started to shake. Perhaps it was because I felt he no longer loved me. If so, I had no choice but to fight. No one else would protect me. So, when are you going to agree with the divorce? I will, but first, tell me why this happened. Why it happened. I could tell he was laughing, as if mocking me. Yes, how did you two get back together? If I answer that question, submit the divorce papers, will you? If you clear up all my doubts. Fine. As I said before, it was at the wedding. She had become much more beautiful than when we were dating. I was shocked. And the fact that she was your best friend felt like fate. From that moment, I knew marrying you was a mistake. Then you should have called off the wedding. Canceling would have cost a cancellation fee. That would have been a waste. I don't think it's a matter of being wasteful. Maybe it could have worked out. So, when did you start seeing each other? It was soon after Nicole started coming to our house often. I thought there would be no reconciliation since she was my wife's best friend. But as we talked about old times, it just happened. That's when I realized I truly loved her. So you confessed? Yes, when I confessed, she told me she still loved me too. We both realized that breaking up was a mistake. And that's when you became a couple again? That's right. Didn't you feel bad, being married? Of course, I felt bad, but you know. The more obstacles there are, the more thrilling it gets. It's like a child's reasoning. She still said she felt sorry for you. She's kind, you know? She was raised well. Apologizing, but still, what she did was, I see. Hey, don't talk about her like that. It was just me who couldn't control my feelings. So, you came home early when Nicole was coming? That's right. I could do anything to see Nicole. And on other days, you were always working late. That's because the work from the days Nicole came over spilled over to other days. I worked overtime to make time for Nicole. But after finishing work, I couldn't stay put, I just had to see Nicole. So, I went to her apartment. Those times were really exciting. So, as his wife, I was completely ignored. So, you stayed over at Nicole's place? Yeah, I told you I was staying in a capsule hotel near the office. But I was actually cozying up at Nicole's apartment. I see. So, why is Nicole the daughter of a real estate magnate? I heard her talking about it, and I was surprised. She always lives modestly, you know. She's lived in an apartment since we dated, and still does. Even the clothes she wears, despite being a rich man's daughter, are cheap. I thought she was just a poor man's daughter. If I'd known, I wouldn't have broken up, what a waste. But, I'm glad we reconnected. She lives in an apartment as the daughter of a real estate magnate? That's right. I thought it was strange too, but since she was a child, being the daughter of a real estate magnate made her the target of envy. So she's been living modestly. Being rich is tough, you know. Did she say that directly to you? No, I overheard her talking to you, and piecing it together. I came to that conclusion. The fact that she doesn't brag about being a rich man's daughter shows her modesty. Ben praised Nicole in such a way, but it was an absurd story. Indeed, Nicole and I had had that conversation. At that time, Ben wasn't in the room. He must have been eavesdropping. But it wasn't about her being the daughter of a real estate magnate, it was about me. I lived modestly, as she said. My mother always told me to live independently of money so that no matter whom I married, I wouldn't struggle. Saving money was important, especially since I would have to live on my spouse's salary. While typically a rich man's daughter would marry into wealth, I preferred a man who had accomplished something himself over a wealthy but inexperienced rich man's son. So, I believed, as my parents said, that my spouse didn't need to be wealthy. Therefore, wanting to avoid an arranged marriage, I agreed with my parents' view and lived modestly. Though, since I was living at my parents' home, it meant only small savings, like not spending much on clothes. She likes men who choose women who live modestly, because it means they're prudent. That's why she never said she was the daughter of a wealthy man. She's modest, you know. Those were my words. I never publicly declared being the daughter of a real estate magnate, because I feared attracting those who were only interested in my wealth. Compared to her, you're always trying to save. You're stingy. Even buying a single juice. You complain about the convenience store being too expensive. You're miserly, always knowing which store sells the cheapest eggs. Or saying that clothes with holes just need to be mended. It's so poor looking, I can't stand it. On the other hand, she's definitely wealthy, even her jewelry is real. That wasn't true. The jewelry Nicole wore was all cheap. They were small, poor quality gems, and anything that looked large was imitation. I had once accompanied her wanting to buy a brand bag, and we ended up in a pawn shop. She said real items could be found cheaply there. I had never bought from such places myself. The branded items I bought were meant to last long, so I didn't own many. But I made sure they were of certain quality. You have brand items too, but they're all imitations. Poor you, that's all you can afford. Now I understood. This was all Nicole's trap. She must have been envious and jealous of me. To think I was fooled by such nonsense, what a foolish family. Realizing the kind of man he was, I promised to send the divorce papers and ended the call, smirking. Enjoy your poor life. 2 weeks later, my husband contacted me. It was to inform me that the divorce was finalized, and he had remarried. We're strangers now. Now I'm also rich. Don't expect any help from me no matter what trouble you find yourself in. And don't think of Nicole as your friend anymore. Don't mooch off her, all her money is mine now. Don't worry, I will never ask for your help. And I'll stop being friends with Nicole, so tell her that. That's good to hear. Now I can relax. He seemed pleased as he hung up the phone. However, it was soon after that when Ben called me, sounding almost like he was screaming. What's going on? Oh, what do you want with a stranger like me? Some workers came and took all the furniture. You said those were imported, right? Yes, that would cost quite a bit if you bought it, wouldn't it? Why would the workers take it? It's only natural since we're divorced. The furniture should be mine since you left the house. That's not correct. Those were bought by my parents before we married. That means they own them. But we're divorced, shouldn't it be divided as property? If we had bought them together after marriage, maybe. But since my parents bought them, you have no rights. That's ridiculous. Now the house is empty. If you want them, they'll be auctioned off, just buy them. How did it come to this? My parents are poor, they couldn't afford such things. Well, then who bought them, I wonder? So you're saying the furniture isn't even good enough for auction? Just cheap stuff that looked good, huh? If you think so, just buy replacements. Maybe Nicole can afford them. Since no parent would want their daughter living poorly after marriage, they'll surely buy her some. Of course. I'll just have her parents buy it. The call ended, but I glanced at my calendar. My revenge had just begun. When this calendar turns, the real revenge will start. I thought, just starting now. He doesn't know the smiling me, and as days passed, I tore the calendar with my hands. In another 2 weeks, Ben will call again, frantic. And just as I thought, after 2 weeks, he did. Why isn't the rent dropping? If it's not dropping, then it's not dropping. I wasn't told this house would cost so much. Well, when we were married, my parents let us live here for free. Your parents, for free? How could your parents afford to lend such a mansion? If you think so, then that's fine. There's no way I can pay this. How was it paid before? That's because my dad thought it was sad to let his daughter live in a rabbit hutch of a house after marriage, so he lent us the best mansion he owned, for free. Normally, no office worker could afford to live there. Indeed, the house was quite a mansion. It had a pool and a large lawn, which my father had landscaped professionally. My mother thought such luxury was excessive. But my father couldn't bear the thought of me living in poverty, and had been covering all the house-related expenses. However, when I told my father about the divorce, he decided to start charging rent, and the mansion my husband had loved so much quickly turned into a rental property. Why your parents? They must be stretching themselves. Well, I can just ask Nicole's parents to handle it. Ben still believes Nicole is the daughter of a real estate magnate. By the way, what about the furniture? Did Nicole's parents buy it? Not yet, timing hasn't worked out. Timing. Nicole's parents will handle the furniture and the house. Listening in, Nicole didn't say a word. Right? Your parents are real estate tycoons, after all. Couldn't they lend us an even more amazing house than this? And buy us some super luxurious furniture, right? Sure. Nicole comes from a wealthy family, after all. They could definitely lend us a much bigger house than this one, and for free. It's for their daughter, of course they would do at least that much. Suddenly joining the conversation was my mother-in-law, repeatedly mentioning Nicole's parents, apparently on speaker mode. I thought, so, it's a four-way conversation. But when Nicole joined in, the direction of the conversation abruptly changed. That's absolutely impossible. My parents would never allow such extravagance. That's not true. They might say that, but they'd do it for their daughter. My family has always said that luxury is absolutely forbidden. A house just needs to be livable, no matter how small. That's not true. We're family, after all. While my mother-in-law was absolutely sure everything would be fine, Nicole was adamant it wouldn't be. Knowing the truth, I couldn't help but smirk, but as they kept repeating, because we're family and it's impossible, I finally revealed the truth. Well, it would be impossible for Nicole. Because, you see, I am the real estate tycoon's daughter. Nicole is the daughter of a poor family. The sudden revelation shocked both my mother-in-law and Ben. But they refused to believe it and pressed Nicole for answers. I never said I was the daughter of a real estate tycoon. You just assumed that yourselves. Nicole suddenly shouted, surprising both Ben and my mother-in-law. Wait, Ben, what does this mean? There's no way. I heard it when Jenny was talking. Sorry, but what Nicole is saying is true. Because I'm the real estate tycoon's daughter. No way, but you two were talking about it, weren't you? You just eavesdropped on people's conversations and interpreted snippets to suit yourself. Too bad for you. Thought you were like a reversed Cinderella, but now the midnight bell's ringing. Leaving the two of them in shock, I ended the call. 3 months passed without hearing anything. I assumed they were getting by somehow, shocked but managing. Since they were married after all. But it seems a quiet struggle was ongoing. And I only found out when Ben called me frantically one day. What should I do? What's wrong now? They're demanding rent payment. You haven't paid? There's no way I can pay that. If this continues, it'll go to court. If you've neglected to pay for 3 months, of course it's going to be a lot. I want to pay if I can. It's just too much, that's why I haven't. Don't yell. It's not my problem. But what should I do? Move out and get to work as a family. Even if it's little by little, if you show a willingness to pay, I think my dad will wait. Can you talk to your dad for me? What should I say for you, a stranger? To let us live there for free. Are you kidding? You're the one who said we're strangers. Don't ask for help, you said. And yet here you are, asking for help? That's pathetic. But what choice do I have now? There's always a choice. Get your family to work. But it's not that simple. Why? Nicole has left the house. Oh, why? You two were so close. When it turned out Nicole wasn't a real estate tycoon's daughter. My mom started constantly complaining and treating Nicole harshly. They started fighting every day. And to top it off, she said none of this would have happened if you hadn't divorced me. That's exactly right. But Nicole says, you assumed I was a real estate tycoon's daughter on your own. I never said I was rich, and it was you who came on to me. It's too late now. I think it's a case of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. You assumed things, and even if she didn't confirm, she didn't deny either. Right? So, it's not my fault. You're still responsible for cheating. Anyway, I suggested we both work. Then she said it wasn't her fault things turned out this way. And she absolutely refused to work. We've been arguing like this forever now. That's unfortunate for you. A few days ago, it turned into a huge battle with my mom. It escalated to throwing hands and feet. Even when I tried to stop them, they wouldn't. Nicole was cursing my mom like a demon. And though I finally calmed them down, the next day she was gone. Well done. But now that you know she's gone, why don't you just look for her? My mom says there's no need to look for such a woman. Plus, we found out she took all the money in the house. Which made my mom even angrier. Oh. Thanks to that, even if we wanted to move, we can't do anything. I have no money on hand right now, so we can't even afford food. Isn't payday almost here? Couldn't you take an advance? That's the thing. Actually, my mom is so worried and anxious about this situation that she's had a mental breakdown. She could work at her age, but she's too emotionally unstable to work right now. I can't leave her alone to go to work either. You can't go? In the end, I had to quit my job too. You quit quite quickly. It hasn't been that long since Nicole left, has it? And now, I'm also getting demands to pay off debts. What debts? Did you borrow something? No, I haven't borrowed anything. But Nicole, that woman. I thought she was getting more luxury items. Because her parents were buying them for her. But it turns out, she bought it all in debt. I always thought her parents were buying them. But she had borrowed money using my name. Poor parents can't do such things, right? I can't help it, I thought she was wealthy. That's what happens when you rely on someone else's money. Birds of a feather, huh? How foolish can you get? Anyway, move out as soon as you can. My mom doesn't want to move. So, help me out. You can help me, right? I don't think about helping others. You reap what you sow, so good luck. While he declared us strangers and told me not to seek help. Here he was, unabashedly asking for my aid. Such sweetness, I thought. Ben's subsequent fate seems quite grim. His mother's mental state has deteriorated significantly, and without him at home, it's unclear what she might do, up to and including harming herself. But upon investigating, it turns out none of that was true. There was no sign of his mother visiting a hospital. And the neighbors kept hearing about a wealthy lady boasting about her mansion. Moreover, she had been flaunting her supposed wealth, relying on grocery delivery services and proclaiming, "I don't buy cheap stuff from supermarkets." As for Ben, he claimed to be an investor, borrowing money to sink into stocks. But never profiting, only accumulating more debt. Eventually, with severe rent arrears, they faced eviction by court order. And in front of their neighbors, enforcement officers kicked them out. Nothing of value was found in the home. And the back rent was to be paid off gradually. Yet, frighteningly, despite falling into poverty, their luxurious habits haven't changed. Now residing in a dilapidated apartment, the work-shy mother and son continue their descent into their own created hell.
My name is Stacy White. I am 30 years old. After dating Patrick for 2 years, I accepted his proposal, and we planned to visit his parents' house to announce our engagement. Little did I know that such a marriage proposal would lead to such an ending. What should I do? I'm getting nervous. Don't worry, it'll be okay. How can you say that? Who wouldn't be nervous in front of such a huge mansion? His parents are wealthy landowners. I heard that his grandfather was given land by a landlord, from which he started a company. Both my mom and dad were looking forward to meeting you, Stacy. But just in case they say anything, I'll always protect you. Patrick. Trusting his words, I visited the mansion. However, those words were quickly betrayed. It seems you and our son are not a good match after all. We don't accept a marriage with a poor woman from a single mother's home. Get out, you gold digger. Poor Patrick. He's been deceived by this woman. We have to stop him, or he'll end up marrying a thieving cat. Let's pretend the engagement never happened. I guess you're right. Stacy, it looks like we should call off the engagement. As soon as they learned I was raised by a single mother, his parents attacked me. Patrick, who said he would protect me, sided with his parents and betrayed me. Indeed, I lost my father early on and was raised by my mother. Just because we were a single mother family doesn't mean we deserve to be despised. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying we don't match. Single-parent kids should marry other single-parent kids, and poor people should marry other poor people. You're just trying to hit the jackpot by marrying a rich son. How can you say that? Are you denying it? You knew my son was the heir to a wealthy family, right? That's true, but And yet you accepted his proposal without hesitation. If I were you, I'd be too ashamed to even consider marriage. Did you deceive my son to inherit his father's company and this land? Stacy, you planned all this. How could you believe that? Do you really trust what they're saying? I don't want to believe it, but if Mom says so, it must be true, right? I chose Stacy, thinking she would be good for our family. I can't believe you approached me with such intentions. I've drawn a short straw. What are you saying? If she's a lawyer, that's even worse. She might have used her skills to investigate our family, to see how much she could gain by marrying into this house. No, that's scary. I'm really not a thieving cat. Let me tell you, our family's wealth isn't something you can easily take. This land was given to my father by the wealthiest landlord in this region when I was still in my mother's womb. My father was cheated by a friend and lost everything. At that time, that landlord allowed him to use this land for free. Free? Yes, that's right. My father passed away a few years ago, and I don't know the details, but he started a company and became wealthy. We've built this wealth through hard work, and I won't easily hand it over to a newcomer like you. Sorry, but my son may have been deceived, but I am not. Get out of this house immediately. I'm sorry to turn you away right after you arrived. Surely there are plenty of suitable people out there for you. Please give up on my son gracefully. But to be 30 and still not married, you might not be able to marry at all. If you had engaged someone similar from the start, you might have been happy by now. That's what you get for aiming too high. That's sad to say, but, well, it's true. Sorry, Stacy. That's the way it is. His parents insulted me, and even he mocked me. However, they didn't know the other reason I had come here. Is that so? Then I'll leave. But are you sure? Of course I am. Just get out. There's nothing more to talk about. Understood. Then please vacate this place immediately. Their faces turned blank for a moment, but then they laughed scornfully. I wondered what you were going to say. What do you mean, please vacate? You must have gone mad from the shock. Just because you're a little upset about family matters, you don't have to make such a tasteless joke. Is this your last struggle? There's no reason for someone with no authority like you to tell us to do such a thing. Just get out. Yes, I am the landlord. That's why I'm telling you to vacate this place. Stacy, what are you talking about? You're the landlord? That's ridiculous. It's true. Well, it wasn't me who gave the land to your grandfather, but my grandfather. Indeed, the landlord who gave the land mentioned by his father was my grandfather. Decades ago, when his grandfather was swindled and lost everything at the same age, my grandfather offered this land. Don't lie. There's no way such a coincidence could happen. I think so too, but this is the truth. Then I presented them with a document. What is this? This is the deed for the land this house is built on. You said it was given by the landlord, but that's not true. Mr. Patrick's grandfather was only borrowing it temporarily and conditionally from my grandfather. What are you talking about? If you really received the land from the landlord, various taxes such as inheritance tax would arise. But it seems you haven't paid any taxes, have you? And if you had paid taxes and received this land, it would be strange that I hold the title deed. Why do I have the title deed? Because I am the landlord's granddaughter, and the land rights were transferred to me. Moreover, the land was not given but lent. They believed they had been granted the land for free by the landlord, but in reality, they were merely renting it. How can that be? What does temporarily and conditionally mean? It seems that Mr. Patrick's grandfather and my grandfather were friends. Seeing him in trouble, my grandfather initially offered to give him the land for free, but Mr. Patrick's grandfather refused to accept the land for free from someone else. So my grandfather set conditions. The conditions were to lend it for free until he could stand on his own feet, and then, once he felt stable, to start paying for the use of the land. No, that's a lie. Such a story. I thought you would say that, so I brought the payment details that have been made up to now. The statement I presented was proof that his grandfather had indeed kept his promise. Have you understood now? However, his father still seemed unable to accept the truth, clutching his head and saying, "But there have been no bills until now. I haven't paid anything, and I've never heard of such a story. If it were true, by now, we would have received countless bills and dunning letters. Since none have arrived, the landlord must have given this land to my father for free. What do you mean by the landlord's granddaughter? All lies. You have no right to tell us to vacate." His father shouted at me in anger. However, I wasn't just making baseless claims. Really? Are you sure no invoices or dunning letters have arrived? How many times do I have to tell you that nothing has come? Are you mistaken? We haven't received any bills at all. Absolutely not. Next to him, one person had a pale face and was looking down. That was Patrick's mother. What's wrong? You've looked pale for a while. Ah, no, it's nothing. Do you have any idea what might be going on? No, that's not. Maybe. You know about the invoices arriving? No, that can't be. If my husband says they haven't arrived, then they really haven't. Is that so? But we have records. We have records of sending land use bills and dunning letters to your house. So they must have arrived. If you know something, can you please start telling the truth? Seemingly unable to keep silent any longer, she sighed heavily and began to speak quietly. They arrived. What did you just say? They arrived. Yes, they did. Not just one or two, but many. Why didn't you tell me this? Did you know about this? Yes, I knew. I knew that this land wasn't given for free, but was under a contract with a time limit. Since when? When the first invoice arrived. It was written in the documents. Until then, I didn't know. I thought, just as your father said, that the landlord had given it to us for free, so I never questioned it, nor did I ask you or your father. And when I saw the amount on the invoice, I was shocked. We're wealthy, but it wasn't an amount we could just casually pay. So I thought I'd keep quiet about it. You thought you'd keep quiet? Well, what could I do? Patrick will inherit this land next. The backlogged use fees that haven't been paid up to now are your responsibility, so you should pay them. But once Patrick inherits this land, he will have to start paying these land use fees. I couldn't bear the thought of him having to pay such amounts. But still, why didn't you know about this? Didn't your father tell you anything? He didn't tell me anything. I wonder about that. You always half listen to people and don't remember important things. Maybe you did hear it but forgot? That can't be. Your wife is right about that. When Mr. Patrick's grandfather was passing, he told my grandfather, "I've informed my son about the contract. Please take care of the rest." That's absurd. I heard nothing. My father was delirious at the end, so he might think he said it, but actually, your father thought you would say that, so he left the documents with me. From my father? Saying that, I presented a document. That's right, at the hospital. The document was about changing the landholder. Additionally, it was a signed document stating he had clearly heard about the land contract. Perhaps because of his habit of not listening properly, he argued whether it was said or not, so documents were left to ensure clarity. I remember signing this document, but what my father said at that time, I don't remember. He just said to take care of the family. You see, your father told you about it. How can you forget such a thing? You really didn't listen to anything. It's so frustrating. What? Basically, if you had told me about the invoice when it arrived, it wouldn't have turned into such a big deal. Blaming me while excusing yourself. That's totally unreasonable. What did you say? As the couple began arguing vehemently, ignoring everything else, I intervened. I apologize for interrupting your argument, but please pay the full amount owed up to now and vacate this place as soon as possible. But being told to vacate so suddenly, it's not sudden. As I mentioned earlier, we have sent you invoices and dunning letters several times, but you ignored them. It should have been written there. If there is no payment or contact by the deadline, we kindly request you to vacate promptly. But, faced with his desperate parents, Patrick was staring at me as if he wanted to say something. What? If you want to say something, just say it. How did you know? Know what? All I told Stacy was that my grandfather had received land from a landlord long ago. How did you know all this? When Patrick told me that story, I didn't even know that my grandfather was the landlord. But a few months ago, when my mother fell ill, she started talking about the land. When my grandfather passed away, my mother inherited his vast lands. However, she was juggling several jobs to raise me, so she had no time to care for the land. It seems she had completely forgotten about it until she fell ill. Before becoming immobile, she transferred the land to me. Then I researched the long-neglected land and discovered there was a parcel leased out on a temporary basis. But that lease had expired long ago. Moreover, since the leaseholder changed, no payments had been made. Once I learned this, I immediately sent out invoices. That was around the time I heard the story from Patrick. Initially, I was surprised. What a coincidence. I thought if Patrick's family paid the overdue amount, that would be enough, considering we were going to be family. But before we could discuss this, you excessively insulted me for being from a single mother's home and poor, and even Patrick mocked me. Seeing that, I lost all desire to continue. Hearing this, their faces turned pale, and they looked at each other, clearly confused. What should we do now? There's only one choice. Make the payment and vacate this house. That's all. I'm sorry. Excuse me? I'm sorry for insulting you about being from a single mother's home. I had no idea you were the granddaughter of the landlord. I spoke rudely. I hope you can forgive me. Forgive? What do you mean by that? So, I'll accept your marriage with my son. Just please overlook this instance. So you mean you want to stay here without making any payments? Yes. The land was lent to us by your grandfather out of kindness. But this house, built on that land, was built diligently by my father for us. We can't just give up this house. So please, I'm begging you. His father said this as he begged me. Stacy, I also ask for your forgiveness. What I said earlier wasn't truly how I feel. I was just scared my son was being taken away by you. That's why I acted meanly, right? Let's both let bygones be bygones and get along? The two pleaded, trying to smooth things over. To them, I replied, it's fine if you don't acknowledge the marriage or forgive anything. Just pay the overdue amount and vacate. I won't accept anything less. Did you hear what I just said? This house is important to us, built by my father. Are you telling us to give it up just because it's built on your land? Yes, please give up on the houses. That's just too tyrannical. The house has nothing to do with the land. I'm not saying vacate for free. I will pay you a sum that includes the cost to demolish this house. Use part of it to demolish the house. Pack your belongings and leave. Their expressions changed immediately. If money was involved, they seemed calmer. However, they didn't understand the implications. However, you'll have to return that evacuation payment. What? Why? As I've said numerous times, no land use fees have been paid since the leaseholder changed, despite sending invoices. Pay the overdue land use fees. It turns out the fees you owe me will exceed the evacuation payment I'm providing you. That's what it means. What? Are you joking? Asking for a return of what you give? Of course, that's the contract. And wouldn't it be better to save any money you can? What do you mean by that? As I mentioned earlier, since I'm a lawyer, you thought I might be investigating your affairs, and you were right. The non-payment triggered a more detailed investigation. I looked into your company. My company? What's the matter? You've turned pale. Do you recall something? What are you talking about? I don't know anything. Then let me be clear. You, as the president, have been embezzling money from your company. And that's not all. There's tax evasion too. You've been up to no good, haven't you? Indeed, while investigating the land, I also looked into his father's company. It was revealed that the president, his father, had been embezzling company funds and engaging in various forms of tax evasion. Dad, is that true? Embezzlement and tax evasion? No, it's not true. I didn't do that. Why would I need to do such things? I'm a wealthy businessman. Why would I embezzle? Hasn't the family fortune already run out? What are you talking about? You were quite addicted to gambling when you were younger, weren't you? You stopped when Patrick was born and growing up, but once he started working, your old habits resurfaced. I heard you've been dabbling in all sorts of gambling again. Gambling is addictive, isn't it? You should have stopped while you were ahead, but you kept losing, thinking maybe you'd win next time. Before you knew it, you'd spent all the money in the houses. Then came the embezzlement, the tax evasion. Didn't your wife know that you were addicted to gambling? Yes, I knew. He was into slots and poker, all sorts of gambling even when we were dating. But we managed because his father was around. His father took care of things so we could get by. Then our son was born, and I asked him to get serious, and he finally stopped gambling. I was relieved, but I never imagined he'd start gambling again, even to the point of embezzling company money. You didn't know he was embezzling? I truly didn't know. I was in charge of the household finances, but the money in the bank account didn't fluctuate much. That must have been because he was replenishing what he spent by embezzling. Why would he do such a thing? Why? As she covered her face with her hands, she began to sob. From the way her husband was flustered, it seemed she really hadn't known. I plan to report the embezzlement and tax evasion to the police with the evidence I have. That doesn't mean I'm withdrawing the claim. You need to take full responsibility for what you've done and what you haven't done. Police. Yes, embezzlement and tax evasion are serious crimes. Wait a minute. Aren't we about to become family? If you do that, become family? What are you talking about? But my dad just said he accepted the marriage, right? So, I no longer intend to marry Patrick. Why? Are you seriously asking that? Yes, I am. We came here to get your blessing for our marriage, right? Why wouldn't you marry me? Is it because my parents insulted you, or because my dad was embezzling, or because we thought the land was free and didn't pay the fees? Those are part of the reasons, but mainly it's because of Patrick himself. Me? When both of your parents were insulting me for being from a single mother's home and poor, did you ever step in? Did you ever deny what they said? That is, exactly. Far from denying it, you joined them in mocking me. I can't forgive you for betraying me. So, like your mother said, it's better if we call off the engagement. That's... Dad, Mom, say something. If this goes on, He looked to his parents for words of support, but they were too preoccupied with the land and the embezzlement. They didn't respond and just stared at the ground, disheartened. Well, that's how it is. Thank you for everything up to now, Patrick. As for the claim, I'll notify you later. Please make sure to respond properly this time. Ooh. After that, I left their grand mansion alone. A few hours later, hello. The intercom at my house rang, and when I checked, Patrick, why are you here? He had come to my home, frantic. Stacy, I need to talk to you. He must have come directly here after I blocked all his contact details. What's there to talk about? I have nothing to discuss with you. Didn't I say? We're calling off the engagement. Don't say that. I want to talk it over again. Just the two of us. Seeing his earnest gaze, I thought to give him one more chance and let him into my house. As soon as he entered, he apologized. "I'm truly sorry. I really got carried away. Our family is wealthy, and I thought whatever I said would be forgiven, and that's how I treated you. Plus, ever since I was a kid, my parents told me never to apologize to anyone beneath me. If you show weakness, you'll be disrespected. So I've always lived thinking I'm above everyone. I really think I was the worst. You don't have to forgive me, but I want to marry you. Please, let's start over from that proposal visit." Hearing his plea, I deeply regretted thinking of giving him a chance. His apology wasn't out of consideration for me. It was to try and salvage his own situation without hiding his motives. I told him clearly, "Why would I restart anything? You think you can say anything because you're the heir to a wealthy family? That you shouldn't apologize to anyone beneath you? You think I would marry someone who talks like that? But no. You promised to protect me, to be okay. But look what happened. Betrayed twice so easily, I can't trust you anymore. Once trust is broken in a marriage, it's over. And for us, it was never really there. I have no intention of starting over with you, so please leave. But if you keep pestering me, I'll have to call the police." When I mentioned the police, he reluctantly left. Though he seemed to have given up, the situation wasn't that simple. I didn't know about such a contract. I will not comply with any payments. Despite my words, they didn't back down, and eventually, it escalated to court. However, why? We've been living here without any problems. Suddenly you demand full payment and to vacate. It's too much. It's tyrannical. The judge's decision was to order them to pay as I had demanded. All three were nearly hysterical. They requested a retrial, but it was denied. They ended up having to pay in installments, and with evidence, the police were notified about the company. I don't know much about what happened afterwards because I wasn't involved. That's ridiculous. If my Father in heaven knew we were bankrupt. Due to his father's embezzlement, the company went bankrupt. All that was left for them was a massive debt, their own doing. I heard that they were on the verge of a family breakdown, blaming each other. Please handle that over there. This is over here. Afterwards, I utilized the land they had to relinquish by building a large apartment complex on it, which now serves as a dormitory for students from nearby high schools and universities. As for me, a few years later, I met a wonderful man and got married, living happily in a way I could never have imagined after such an ordeal.